All right, folks, welcome to Sergeant Slide's YouTube channel. We've got engine swaps underway. So we kind of went over what we've got going on in the last video, all the parts, all the upgrades and everything that's going into this engine. Brief review if you didn't see the previous video. The old engine that's coming out never made more than 25 psi of oil pressure. The new motor that we have is a 347 going in. It's got a scat rotating assembly, Wesco pistons. Unfortunately, I didn't spring for all the forged internals and everything, so I've got like the medium grade stuff. But either way, that should be plenty good for what I'm planning on doing with the engine. The video that you guys just saw was me doing the last burnout on this motor. It's the last burnout this motor's ever going to do, unless it gets saved and reincarnated into another race car, which probably will, just not here. So I was just thinking to myself and just trying to figure out how I wanted to do this video today. I don't know how many times we've been here doing motor swaps and rebuilds and things like that. I've actually lost count. You probably have too. I've done the detailed videos to show you how to do everything. I've done the build montages to make everything look fun and easy. So I was just thinking, what if we skip to the part when the swap is already done, folks? So no drama this time. Everything's in there. We've made a few updates. As I was saying before, we've got the oil filter relocation. We've got the oil cooler in there now. A couple of small wiring updates, and got the dipstick relocation. I don't have that capped off yet because I need to see where the oil level is going to sit. Steve is on his way over right now to help get the timing sorted out, get the first start out the way, idle, and all of that stuff, and then we're going to rip this thing. All right, folks, we are not about to rip this thing. It's like 3 months later and the car is more or less in the same spot. Unfortunately, we've had some significant electrical issues. Nothing was my fault. My wiring is impeccable. But unfortunately, when I upgraded to the Hyperspark ignition system, it kicked off a whole host of electrical problems. So these units are prone to some significant electromagnetic interference, RFI, and things like that. And some units have it and some units don't. Sometimes you can mitigate it and sometimes you can't. I've spent a lot of time researching on what I can do to mitigate these things. I've done all the mitigations you know, that I thought were viable. There's a million people out there having this issue, and there's a million problems, and then there's a million answers. And you know, realistically, this is just a flawed piece of gear and it doesn't do what it's supposed to do. So it was working in my previous configuration, but once I went to the Hyperspark, in order to give myself the ability to tune my timing, it's no longer viable. So I'm gonna pull this thing off, and I upgraded to the new style unit. So this is the Sniper 2, which is supposed to have accounted for some of that stuff. We'll see. I'm not super optimistic. I'm like 50-50 on this thing, but I don't really have any other choices for the way my engine is set up. So at this point, I'm going to be ripping everything out. It's not a direct plug and play swap, switch and swap, whatever you want to call it. I have to rewire everything in the car. I have to redo my fuel lines because the new unit does not have a regulator on it. And yeah, it's going to be a lot of work. So I'm going to go ahead and get to it, and I hope that that addresses my issue. And there's a little preview of something else that's going on that you guys might see in the next video. All right, current progress. New unit is on. I have to redo my fuel lines and add a fuel regulator because it's a little bit different. My throttle linkage is completely different and it's not opening 100%, so I have to figure out how to get that going. I'm not going to worry about that at the moment. And here's what it looks like inside the car. I got wires gone all over the place, but I've taken the time to label everything. So I got tags on everything, so I know what every single wire is and where it's going. And now I just have to work on splicing everything back together. Alrighty, folks, the wiring is complete. The dash is back in. Hopefully everything's correct. I'm pretty sure it is because I took a lot of time beforehand to make sure everything was prepped and ready. The next thing for this project is to replumb the fuel lines. But before I do that, I think what I'm gonna do is address this throttle cable issue. So I figured out that in order to fix my issue, all I had to do is just angle this down a little bit. It was up too high, so it wasn't pulling all the way. Alrighty, folks, we've got this thing all back together. The new Sniper 2 is installed. Also, the fuel pressure regulator is now installed. I did a deadhead style lines, or whatever you want to call it. Same way I've got the Mustang. You got your send, you got your return, and then you got one line going, and the other part of the fuel rail is capped off. I did it because I thought it'd make it look cleaner. I don't know. I don't really like that being there, but I don't have a choice. Besides that, the car is all together. It's running. It cranks right up, and the Sniper 2 is doing what it's doing so far. I've only had it running for about 10 seconds or so at a time, and I don't want to start it up right now because it's super rich and it stinks, and it just stinks up the whole garage. So next I'm going to pull it out, get it up to temperature, make sure all the fluids and everything are good, and then we'll take it around the block for a test. Alrighty, folks, I think this is pretty much going to wrap up this episode. It's been a very long, difficult one. I thought that this was going to be a quick win. I had the old motor out and I had the new motor in and all plugged up and everything within 3 days when I started this project. And I started mid-fall, towards the end of fall, and it's taken me all winter to complete this thing. So that just goes to show you that sometimes you have plans and then things get all jacked up. And just the story of my life with both of these cars. You go to work on one thing and then you have to re-engineer the whole system for whatever reason. If something's wrong with something, I'm gonna find it and I'm gonna experience it. So we've got the brand new management on the car. Everything's running fine so far. We've had it around the block. The car's not really making power right now, like at all, because there's no tune whatsoever on it. It's just the startup tune, just the tune that's gonna allow you to turn the key and get the car running so that you can continue to do other things. So the next step for this thing is to get this thing to the tuner. I'm hoping to have a reputable person dyno tune this car. My buddy Dedrick is not gonna be able to do this one because we normally do street tunes, and with this car not being tagged or anything, I don't want to be driving it up and down the street, so we're just going to throw it on the dyno, get everything done in one day, lock it in, leave it, and then come springtime, we should be able to finally take this thing to some track days and have some good fun with it. So unfortunately, no shredding in this video. That may not happen for a little while because I got to get the car tuned, but thanks for hanging out. Thanks for sticking with me. The next project that you guys are going to see is going to be fun and interesting, so I hope you guys check that one out. We'll catch you on the next one.